We are in progress on Play It Forward with Kristin Noriega, director, writer, actor. The film today is When You're Gone. Kristin, thank you for being here today. Would you
Yeah,
like to introduce yourself or the film in any way before we start?
my name's Kristin Noriega. I'm based out of New York City. And my short is also set in New York City involving some creatures from the underground that invade a woman's apartment as she's going through a pretty crappy breakup. So that's how I would introduce
I really
myself
like
and
that
the film.
intro. I live in New York City in Hell's Kitchen, by the way, where your
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
creature is based, or at least her apartment. Um, and it's cool hearing you introduce it because as I was mentioning, kind of the nature of the show and trying to get deep into the feelings and the structure of ourselves and the art and how it all relates. It's
Hmm.
like, whoa, okay, so here's this person breaking up, going through this terrible breakup, and this creature, this violent, like dark thing emerges from the underworld, the sewers of New York City. And I that helps me contextualize the creature in her life and how, yeah, going through a heavy breakup like that, all of us could feel that there's this darkness that is gnawing at us. And how do we, deal with that, and how do we overcome that? So the first question of Play It Forward is, the creative seed, this germinal idea, whatever it was, whether it was like, oh, I see this vision of this creature or this woman, like, um, thrown up in the corner of the room, or if it was a theme, if it was like, oh, I want to explore it. See, what was that like? Just earliest little spark that lit you to write this and act in it as well, director, writer, actor.
Yeah. So in the name of transparency, I've been an actor for years and years. And it was early 2019. I had been cast in a lead role with by some friends in a project I had helped develop. And that project got funding. And they, called me one day and were like, hey, we really hope you understand now that we have funding, we're going to be looking for a name actor and recasting that part.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
So
my
um,
God.
so my brain totally got it right, but like my heart, it really,
Oh,
really knocked me down.
oh.
In the time that I had to sort of reflect and daydream and all of those things that we do when we're down and out,
Wasn't
um,
meant to be, clearly.
yeah, I just remember getting this image of someone who's so wound up in their depression and not wanting to be present, just not wanting to be conscious, all of those things that you might be feeling when you're experiencing loss or depression, what have you. And this person has been cocooned by a creature. And by the time they notice this has happened, they sort of turn around and face the creature, and it's like, okay. And they turn back around, and that's the accepted fate of the indifference to living at that point. And I couldn't get that image out of my head.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
as you may know, we always have these manhole explosions in
I
Hell's
had no
Kitchen.
idea. Are you serious? That happens?
Really?
I've been there 20 years. I've
Yeah.
never heard of this.
Oh God, it
Yeah.
happens. And every time I'm just so fascinated
That's
by
crazy.
it's silly, right? It's crazy. But
Yeah.
I just thought, what if
I mean,
what if
people must get hurt.
they must? I don't know. It's usually just a very loud. I don't know that everyone's ever been struck by one of the manhole covers. I would have
Okay.
to look into it.
That's so weird.
Yeah. I know it has to do with like, especially in the springtime, all of the salt melting down into like the wires that
Mm,
are all down there, and it
mm,
just
mm,
causes like an
mm.
explosion.
Interesting.
They're very common. And so yeah, I just thought, what if I ran with that idea? I've always loved the urban lore of like people flushing their alligators or exotic pets living
Right.
in sewers and running around.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just smacked all that stuff together, simultaneously writing a role for myself.
Good
Um,
for you.
that meant a lot to me. And then in a movie that I wanted to see. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's really cool. I was as you were talking, I was gonna say, well, yeah, not only okay, so there's that part where she like sees the monster and kind of like resigns her fate and doesn't have the strength to fight, but there is that moment where that she rips the monster's children head off, bites into it and throws away. So there is that point where she does find the inner strength to live.
Yeah.
Um, so I haven't been a horror guy myself in terms of like having a lot of knowledge of the genre or experience of it. As a kid, I was like, okay, it's too scary. I admit. And I've talked to a lot of horror filmmakers, a number of them, and I'm finding that they're a different breed and they're kind of different animal. And I'm really getting interested in like what inspires them as horror filmmakers. This one guy was really cool. I talked to. He was just so transparent and honest. He was like, I was like, why horror? And he was like, I have a lot of anxiety. And it just kind of clicked. It's like his way of kind of just channeling that anxiety, watching those kind of movies that get, that trigger that in him and then give him that release, that cathartic release that he can relax and to himself. Now, I obviously don't know if that's the same for you, but watching horror movies and watching these horror movies, which is yours, is very highly produced. I mean, it's, on the level that you are making a short independent film, it's very impressive. It's I mean the quality, the care, the craft that you put into it is, very professional and it's a very nice piece. Um, However, it's very different than a dramatic work of art, in the sense that you go in, there's a kind of an arch, these characters, this development, which you have all that developmental characters, but there's such that I'm finding in my education of horror, there's such kind of that like raw, visceral thing that happens. And for me, I think it was, I was like, oh, when
I
when
know.
the little animals got their heads bit off. And which is great. And so I'm like learning, I'm understanding, oh, okay. So the kind of the humanity and the commentary of humanity works a little different in the horror genre. So that said, I am leading up to the second question. Um, Now you've made it. Now you're looking back in reflection on the film and you're a viewer. What is the message of the movie to you?
It's that if we don't face our grief, our trauma, our pain actively and head on, it will quite literally consume us. I feel like that's what I take away from it every time. Um, and I get different interpretations from folks who watch it, which I always love hearing because I'm like, yeah, I love that you got it. Something you got that from this. It's like that's not wrong either. But continuously every time I watch it with an audience now, I'm like, yeah, that's the heart of it for me. Yeah.
That's cool. And, it was interesting in terms of the, I guess, corresponding, like my interpretation of the monster and the monster coming out of the sewer and the toilet and these, depths or bowels and the sort of the human waste, the emotional waste that we as humans kind of create and hide and bury, then coming back out to get us, in some way, right?
Yeah.
As a threat. And, we're doing that as a society, as a, global culture. It's so prevalent in so many ways. Um, and, kind of looking at what you said with grief and not facing grief and not taking ownership of that waste that we're creating is kind of, to me, seems like very similar to what you're saying in terms of, cleaning house emotionally. If we're
Mhm.
not cleaning house emotionally, it's just things get messy, dirty, and we get consumed.
Yeah. Before you know it. Yeah. It just, yeah, builds up.
Since making the movie, how have you been changed as a person?
Making the film was incredibly liberating for me, in the sense that as an actor, you're always kind of waiting for someone to say, yes, you can have this. And I'm not in any way implying that filmmaking is easier than acting. But just having brought this thing from conception to final product to screening, has just given me a level of confidence in myself that I definitely did not have before. I have the privilege of having encouragement and compliments from folks that I admire and respect so much. Saying you're great at this. You could continue to do this. You could continue to write and filmmake, and we're on board for anything that you ever put your name to, kind of thing. So that's changed me. It's definitely a 180 in my self-confidence from before.
Wow. That's awesome. And so in terms of going forward in your life with that new renewed confidence, how has it changed you day to day?
You ever just have those moments in your life, you're like, how did I do that? Like I can't imagine trying to go through that again. But knowing that you did and knowing that you pushed through, um, just helps me get through other things, silly things. I don't want to say silly, our anxieties are very real when we're feeling them. But when I get anxiety about going into like my day job, as I continue to create on the side, I'm just like, you know what? I did that thing. I will continue to, no matter what comes my way, it will be okay and I will get through it. Might not be the ideal solution or scenario, but I will be okay and life will go on, kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's a powerful feeling, and
Yeah.
how wonderful that you got that opportunity after having one door close. You
Mhm.
opened another one for yourself and found that liberation. I mean, that's like an incredible story. That's beautiful. Thank you for being on Play It Forward. Kristin Noriega, director, writer, actor. The film is When You're Gone, nominated by Christine Salozzi. Pleasure to have you on the show, and keep us posted on what you're doing. We'll definitely share it with the audience.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, Play It Forward. Peace, and thank you for watching.